The stars twinkled silently in the deep void of space, their cold light reflecting off the distant hulls of countless ships drifting in the Galactic Council's space sector. It was a quiet day, or so it seemed. But across the galaxy, something was stirring, something that would change the fate of many. In a small, quiet corner of the galaxy, a strange signal had been detected. At first, it was just a blip. But soon, it became clear that the signal was a warning. It was coming from deep within the edge of human space, a place that had been mostly ignored by the Galactic Council for years. The signal was clear. A human warship was approaching the galactic sector. On the bridge of the Sovereign, a massive human warship, Captain Rhea Hawk stood at the front, her sharp eyes scanning the stars. She was calm, her face betraying no sign of worry. The Sovereign was an advanced battleship, capable of taking on entire fleets. It had been designed for one thing: war. But for the past few years, humanity had focused on peace, focusing on rebuilding and exploring the galaxy. Warships like the Sovereign had been sitting idle, just in case. Her first officer, Lieutenant Derek Jansen, stood beside her, reading the incoming data. "Captain, it's confirmed," he said. "A fleet of ships, including the Sovereign, has crossed into galactic territory. They're on a direct course toward us." Captain Hawk remained silent for a moment, thinking. She had known this day might come. The humans had become too strong, too influential in the galaxy. Some had seen them as a threat, and the threat had finally arrived. "We need to inform the Council," Hawk said, her voice steady. "They need to know what's coming." Lieutenant Jansen nodded and quickly began contacting the Galactic Council. Meanwhile, Captain Hawk turned to face the large view screen at the front of the bridge. It displayed the vastness of space, dotted with distant stars and planets. But now, as she looked out into the blackness, she knew that things would never be the same. Across the galaxy, in the heart of the galactic capital, the news reached the ears of the Council. They had always known that humans were powerful, but they never expected this: an entire warship fleet approaching their sector. The Council had hoped that humanity would focus on exploration, diplomacy, and peace. But now, it seemed the humans were planning something much bigger. In the Council chambers, several alien leaders gathered in a panic. Ambassador Xalith of the Ridian species stood up, his voice echoing in the silent room. "This is no coincidence," he said. "The humans are coming to test us. They want to see if we're ready for war." Other leaders voiced their concerns. The Ashtari, a powerful warrior race, were ready for battle. They had been waiting for something like this for years. The Gyrex, however, were more cautious. They feared that fighting humanity would lead to the destruction of everything they had worked for. "The humans are unpredictable," said Commander Volek, a towering figure of the Aract species. "We don't know their true intentions. We must prepare for the worst." Meanwhile, on the Sovereign, Captain Hawk was making her own preparations. She had spent years training her crew, teaching them how to act in moments like this. And now, it was time to put those skills to the test. "Prepare for all scenarios," she ordered her crew. "We don't know how the Council will respond, but we need to be ready for anything. The Sovereign is a symbol of humanity's strength, and I will not let it be taken lightly." Her voice was firm, and her crew moved with purpose. Every station hummed with energy, every officer alert. The warning had been sent. The galactic sector had been alerted. And now, it was a waiting game. The Council would decide how to respond soon. Some would want to fight, to destroy the human threat before it could grow. Others would want to negotiate, to find a way to work together. But what the Council did not know was that humanity had a plan of its own. As the Sovereign approached the galactic sector's borders, Captain Hawk felt a strange sense of calm. This wasn't just about war. This was about survival. And the galaxy would soon learn that humanity was more than just a new species. It was a force to be reckoned with. On the bridge, Hawk's eyes narrowed as she watched the distance close. The sector was within reach, but she wasn't worried about the Council or the alien fleets. She had her crew. She had her ship. And most of all, she had humanity's strength. The warning had been sent. Now, it was time to see what the galaxy would do. The silence of space was shattered by the hum of the Sovereign's engines as the massive warship cruised toward the edge of the galactic sector. Captain Rhea Hawk stood at the front of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the stars outside. Her mind raced with thoughts of the Council's reaction. She had spent years preparing for this moment, but nothing could fully prepare her for the unknown. Behind her, Lieutenant Direct Jansen spoke, his voice low but urgent. "Captain, the fleet is preparing to move. We have an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to speak with you." Hawk nodded and stepped toward the communication console. The face of Ambassador Xalith, the leader of the Ridian species, appeared on the screen. His glowing eyes seemed to pierce through the screen, and his voice was calm, though there was a clear edge to it. "Captain Hawk," he began, his voice measured, "you've crossed into our sector with your warship. Do you intend to provoke us?" Hawk didn't flinch. She had anticipated this kind of reaction. The Ridians were a proud species, known for their fierce reputation in battle. She knew they were itching for a fight, but she couldn't afford to show weakness. "We're not here to provoke anyone," Hawk replied, her voice steady. "We're here to make sure humanity's presence is known. The galaxy needs to understand that we won't be ignored anymore." Ambassador Xalith's eyes narrowed. "Your arrogance will be your downfall, Captain. The galaxy is not yours to claim." "We're not claiming anything," Hawk responded. "We're simply stating that we are here, and we are not going anywhere." Xalith's image flickered for a moment, and then his expression softened slightly. "We will see what your actions reveal. The Council will convene shortly to discuss your fleet's presence. We advise you to prepare for the consequences." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in a tense silence. Captain Hawk took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She could feel the weight of the situation settling over her. This wasn't just a warning to the Council. It was a declaration. Humanity would not back down. Lieutenant Jansen spoke again, his voice carrying a hint of concern. "Captain, we've detected movements in the sector. Several alien ships are aligning with our path. It looks like they're preparing for something." Hawk's eyes flashed with a mix of determination and caution. "What kind of ships?" "Mostly smaller reconnaissance vessels, but there are a few larger warships in the fleet," Jansen replied, his fingers quickly typing into the console. "They're setting up a defensive perimeter, Captain. We could be walking into an ambush." Hawk frowned. The Council may have been slow to react, but it seemed that the alien races within the sector were taking this threat very seriously. Humanity's reputation had reached their ears, and they were preparing to respond. "Keep me updated on their movements," Hawk ordered. "We need to know their next move." As the Sovereign drew closer to the galactic sector, the tension only grew. The crew on the bridge moved quickly and efficiently, checking systems and making preparations for any possible confrontation. Hawk kept her focus, her mind already planning her next steps. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was in turmoil. The sudden appearance of a human warship in their sector had stirred up more chaos than they had expected. Representatives from many different species, each with their own interests and concerns, were gathered in a virtual meeting, trying to come to a consensus. Commander Volok, the Erech leader, was the first to speak. His booming voice echoed through the chamber. "The humans think they can waltz into our territory and intimidate us. We should meet them with force. If they won't show respect, we must make them." The Gyrex ambassador, a tall and slender being, shook his head. "No, Volok. We don't know their true intentions. They've been quiet for years. This might not be as simple as you think. We should negotiate first." "Negotiate?" Volok sneered. "They're armed for war. Negotiation is a waste of time." Xalith, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "We must be careful. The humans are unpredictable, and their warship is not something to take lightly. I have seen their strength firsthand. We cannot ignore the potential consequences of this." The debate continued for hours, but no clear answer emerged. Some wanted to fight, some wanted to negotiate, others wanted to wait and see how the humans would respond. But deep down, they all knew one thing: humanity's presence could no longer be ignored. Back on the Sovereign, Hawk remained calm, even as the threat of war loomed closer. She knew the galaxy wouldn't understand them. How could they? Humanity had been a quiet, almost forgotten species until now. But no longer. The time for peace had passed. The time for human strength had come. The Sovereign moved ever closer to the galactic sector's core. Its engines hummed with power, and the crew readied themselves for what was to come. No matter what happened next, Captain Hawk would ensure that humanity would leave its mark on the galaxy. As the Sovereign cruised deeper into the galactic sector, the hum of its engines was the only sound on the bridge. The crew was tense, preparing for what they knew could be a dangerous encounter. Captain Rhea Hawk stood before the communication console, watching the dark expanse of space ahead. There was no turning back now. Lieutenant Derek Jansen stepped forward, his eyes scanning the screens. "Captain, we've reached the outer rim of the sector. The alien vessels are closing in fast. They're preparing to surround us." Hawk nodded, her mind already calculating their next move. "Do they intend to engage?" "We're not sure yet," Jansen replied, adjusting the sensors. "Their movements are erratic, like they're testing us, trying to figure out our next step." Hawk took a deep breath. This was it. This was the moment humanity would show the galaxy that they were no longer weak, no longer content to be ignored. She wasn't about to let anyone think they could push humanity around. "Open a channel to the nearest vessel," she ordered. Moments later, a strange figure appeared on the screen. It was an alien, tall and lithe, with translucent skin that shimmered in the light. The alien's eyes glowed an eerie blue, and its voice came through with an unsettling calmness. "This is Ambassador Draal of the Zorith Empire," the alien said. "You have entered our territory without permission. What is your purpose here?" Captain Hawk's voice was steady as she spoke. "I am Captain Rhea Hawk of the Sovereign, representing humanity. We are here to make it clear that we are no longer the forgotten species. We will not be ignored." Draal's expression remained unreadable, but his tone shifted slightly. "You think a warship will earn you respect? The galaxy is not a place for human arrogance." "We didn't come here to beg for respect," Hawk replied firmly. "We came here to prove that humanity will stand up for itself. We are not afraid to defend our place in this galaxy." There was a brief silence on the screen as Draal studied Hawk. He seemed to be evaluating her, trying to determine whether she was bluffing or speaking the truth. Finally, he spoke again. "If you insist on pushing forward, you will meet resistance," he said. "We will not allow your kind to trample over the peace we have built." Hawk's gaze never wavered. "We don't want war, but we won't be cowed. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves. This is your warning." Draal's image flickered for a moment, and then the transmission ended. The bridge was silent for a few moments before Jansen spoke up. "They're not backing down, Captain. The alien ships are positioning themselves around us. They're preparing for something." Hawk nodded, her mind racing. She had expected a hostile response, but the galaxy's refusal to take humanity seriously had always been the greatest obstacle. This encounter was more than just a battle of strength. It was a battle for recognition, for respect. "Status report, Lieutenant," she asked. "We've got 3 warships surrounding us, along with several smaller vessels," Jansen reported. "They're preparing to fire. It looks like they've made their decision." Hawk's heart raced, but her voice remained calm. "Prepare for battle. Raise shields and ready the weapons. If they fire on us, we'll retaliate." The crew moved quickly, working in sync to prepare the Sovereign for whatever came next. As the ship's weapon systems powered up, Hawk turned her attention back to the view screen. The alien vessels were growing closer, their weapons glowing ominously. Outside the ship, the cold void of space stretched endlessly in every direction, a reminder of just how small humanity had once seemed. But not anymore. They had a ship. They had the firepower. They had the will to survive. The Sovereign's engines hummed with power, and Hawk felt a surge of determination. She wouldn't let her people fall into the shadows again. This was humanity's chance to prove itself, to show the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with. Suddenly, a new transmission came through. It was from the Zorath warship directly in front of them. The screen flickered, and another alien appeared. This one was taller than Droll, with dark, muscular features and eyes that burned with fiery intensity. "You are bold, Captain," the new alien said, "but your people are not ready for what you seek. You think your ship will protect you. Your weapons are nothing compared to what we can unleash." Hawk's gaze never left the alien. "We're not here to start a war, but if you force our hand, we will fight back." The alien's lips curled into a cold smile. "So be it, Captain. We shall see how long your boldness lasts." The transmission ended, and Hawk's hands gripped the console tightly. The tension was unbearable. The crew waited, unsure of what would happen next. Would the aliens attack, or would they back down? "Captain," Jansen spoke again, his voice strained. "They've locked onto us. They're preparing to fire." Hawk's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood tall. "Brace for impact. Shields up." The Sovereign's shields flared to life, just as the first barrage of alien fire ripped through space. The ship rocked violently, but the shields held firm. Humanity had made its stand. The Sovereign shook under the force of the alien barrage, but Captain Rhea Hawk stood firm, her eyes focused on the screen. The alien ships were relentless, their weapons charging for another attack. Yet, in the chaos of battle, something within her stirred. A sense of purpose, of defiance. Humanity was no longer a timid species. They were ready to fight for their place. "Shields holding," Lieutenant Jansen reported, his fingers flying over the controls. "But they won't last much longer. They're adapting to our defenses." Hawk gritted her teeth. The aliens had underestimated human resolve, but it was clear they had also underestimated human ingenuity. The Sovereign's design had been built with one principle in mind: survive at any cost. The shields might bend, but they would not break. Not yet. "Target their lead ship," Hawk ordered, her voice calm but filled with authority. "Fire all forward weapons." Jansen nodded, his hands steady as he issued the commands. The Sovereign's cannons fired with a deafening roar, sending a volley of plasma blasts toward the alien ship in front. The blasts streaked across space, their glow lighting up the void like distant stars. The lead alien ship swerved to the side, narrowly avoiding the blasts. Hawk's eyes narrowed as she watched their movements on the tactical screen. They were fast, almost too fast for human technology. But they had one advantage. The humans aboard the Sovereign were just as adaptable. "Captain, they're closing in on us from all sides," Jansen said, his voice tight with urgency. "We can't keep dodging like this." "We don't have to dodge," Hawk replied, her voice firm. "We're not running from this fight. Target their weaker ships. Let's see if we can disable their smaller vessels first." The Sovereign's weapon systems adjusted. The crew worked as one, their movements precise, each person fully aware of their role. In moments, a new volley of fire shot forward, aimed at one of the smaller alien ships. The ship's shields flared briefly before collapsing under the intense fire, and the ship erupted into a series of brilliant explosions. One down. The crew let out a collective breath, but there was no time for celebration. The remaining alien vessels were already changing tactics, their movements becoming more erratic, more desperate. They were no longer just testing the humans. They were attacking with everything they had. "They're regrouping," Jansen observed, his eyes scanning the incoming data. "Looks like they're preparing for a coordinated strike." Hawk nodded. "Brace yourselves." A wave of alien ships surged toward the Sovereign, their weapons firing in perfect sync. The Sovereign rocked violently as the alien fire collided with its shields, causing them to flicker and weaken. The ship groaned under the pressure, but the crew held their ground. "Shields at 45%, Captain," Jansen warned. "We can't take much more of this." "Do not panic," Hawk commanded, her voice cutting through the tension. "We've trained for this. Keep firing. We'll turn the tide." Another series of plasma blasts exploded against the Sovereign's shields, but this time, Hawk was ready. She saw the pattern in the alien attack. Their formations were starting to break apart. They were getting too predictable. "Target the mid-range ships," she ordered, her voice sharp. "Fire all heavy weaponry." The Sovereign's cannons roared once again, releasing a barrage of powerful blasts that tore through the space between the ships. Several of the alien vessels were hit, their shields disintegrating, and their hulls ripped apart in brilliant flashes of light. Hawk watched with a sense of grim satisfaction as the alien ships faltered. They weren't as invincible as they had seemed at first. The humans were beginning to push back. But the battle was far from over. The remaining alien warships, though fewer in number, now focused all their fire on the Sovereign. The sheer weight of their assault was overwhelming. For every blast that the humans returned, 2 more alien shots came their way. The Sovereign's shields flickered dangerously low, the ship groaning under the strain. "We're losing power to the shields," Jansen shouted, his face filled with concern. "We need to recharge them, Captain." "We don't have time for that," Hawk barked, determination in her voice. "Get us in closer. We'll have to fight them at short range. Close the gap." Jansen didn't hesitate. The Sovereign's engines roared as they pushed forward, cutting through the battlefield like a blade. As they closed in on the remaining alien ships, Hawk's mind raced. This was it, the final stand. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but she refused to back down. "Target their engines," she said through gritted teeth. "We disable them. We win." With a sharp turn, the Sovereign lined up a perfect shot at the rear of the closest alien warship. Hawk's finger hovered over the fire button, and with a single motion, she gave the command. The blast shot out, a bolt of energy that cut through space and slammed into the alien ship's engines. The ship's engines flared with a burst of light before shutting down completely. The ship drifted, helpless, as its allies tried to compensate for the sudden loss. "Good hit, Captain," Jansen shouted. "1 ship down. We've got them on the ropes." But the battle wasn't over yet. The remaining alien ships were not backing down. They regrouped and readied another assault, their weapons charging for another round. Hawk could feel the weight of the crew's hope on her shoulders. It was time to end this. With their resources stretched thin, the Sovereign had no choice but to go all in. "Prepare for the final strike," she ordered. "Let's show them what humanity can do." The Sovereign surged forward, cutting through the void like a predator. The remaining alien warships closed in, their weapons already primed for another barrage. But this time, something was different. The Sovereign's crew had learned from their mistakes, adjusted their tactics, and were prepared for the next move. Captain Hawk stood firm at the command station, her eyes sharp and focused. She had witnessed many battles, but none like this. The aliens had underestimated humanity, thinking they were weak and outmatched. Now they were learning that humans could stand their ground and fight with a relentless determination. "Captain, they're preparing to fire," Jansen shouted from his station. "Incoming attack." The Sovereign rocked again, but this time it was different. The ship's shields held strong, barely bending under the force of the alien assault. Hawk felt the difference. The ship wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. The crew was no longer reacting to the enemy. They were anticipating their every move. "Return fire. Target their flagship," Hawk ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The crew obeyed without hesitation. They had all been through the training, the simulations, and the real-life trials. They were no longer just a crew, they were a family, and they fought together with one mind. The Sovereign's guns fired with precision, the powerful blasts tearing through space toward the alien flagship. The alien ship tried to evade, but it was too late. The The Sovereign's weapons were too accurate, and the blast slammed into the side of the alien vessel, sending it into a spin. "Direct hit," Jansen yelled, his voice filled with excitement. "Their flagship is losing power." Hawk didn't celebrate yet. The battle wasn't won. But seeing the alien flagship falter was a sign that the tide was turning. The Sovereign had shown that it could withstand the alien onslaught, and now it was pushing back. "Focus all fire on the remaining vessels," Hawk commanded. "We're not done yet." The crew of the Sovereign worked in perfect harmony, each person knowing exactly what to do. Jansen adjusted the targeting systems, while Lieutenant Taylor monitored the ship's damage control. The team worked like a well-oiled machine, each individual doing their part to keep the ship in fighting shape. The aliens, sensing their vulnerability, began to pull back. But they were still dangerous, and they weren't ready to give up without a fight. The remaining ships formed a defensive perimeter around their flagship, preparing for a final stand. "Captain, they're regrouping," Jansen said. "They're going for broke." Hawk could see it. The alien forces had nothing left to lose. They were going all in, throwing everything they had at the Sovereign. But the humans aboard the ship had learned something vital. When it came to battle, they were adaptable. They could take the hits and keep going. They could fight back with everything they had. "We're not going to let them win," Hawk said, her voice resolute. "Prepare for the final offensive. We end this now." The Sovereign's engines roared as the ship accelerated toward the enemy fleet, its guns charging for a final strike. The crew's eyes were all on the main screen, watching as the alien ships closed in. The tension in the air was palpable, but Hawk knew that they had one advantage: human resilience. They weren't going to back down. "Captain, the enemy flagship is retreating," Jansen reported, his voice filled with surprise. "They're trying to escape." "Not on my watch," Hawk said, her eyes narrowing. She wasn't going to let them get away. The Sovereign was already in pursuit, its weapons primed and ready for the final strike. The alien flagship tried to flee, but it was no match for the Sovereign's speed and firepower. The Sovereign closed in on the alien ship, its guns firing relentlessly. Each shot was a message. Humanity was not to be underestimated. With a final blast, the Sovereign's weapons tore through the alien flagship's hull, sending it into a fiery explosion. The other alien ships, seeing their flagship fall, hesitated. The once coordinated alien fleet now began to break apart, some ships attempting to retreat, while others simply turned and fled into the depths of space. "Victory!" Jansen shouted, his voice echoing in the command center. But Captain Hawk wasn't ready to celebrate. They had won the battle, but there was no time for rest. The aliens would be back, and when they returned, humanity would be ready. For now, they had secured their place in the galaxy, but it was only the beginning. "We've won this round, but there's more to come," Hawk said, her eyes scanning the wreckage of the alien fleet. "Let's prepare for whatever comes next." The crew of the Sovereign took a deep breath, knowing that they had proven something essential, that humanity's strength was not just in their technology, but in their unwavering will to survive. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The Sovereign slowly drifted away from the wreckage of the alien fleet, the darkness of space around it dotted with the faint glow of burning ships. The crew, though exhausted, knew that the battle was far from over. Their victory was significant, but it was only one step in a much larger conflict. The aliens would regroup, and when they returned, they would come back stronger. Captain Hawk stood at the bridge, her hands resting lightly on the console in front of her. Her eyes scanned the star charts, but her mind wasn't on the map. She couldn't help but wonder what the aliens would do next. Their fleet had been scattered, but they were relentless. It was only a matter of time before they found a way to recover. "Report, Jansen," Hawk said, turning to her communications officer. Jansen, still seated at his station, glanced up. "The alien ships that fled are still out there, Captain. They're licking their wounds, but they're not retreating entirely. Some are regrouping near the Vortis system. It seems like they're trying to rebuild their forces." Hawk frowned. We need to stay one step ahead. If they regroup and build a new fleet, we'll be fighting an even stronger enemy. Agreed, Jansen said, his voice grim. But we've damaged their command structure. Without their flagship, they'll have to rebuild their leadership, which could take time. Hawk nodded. We can use that to our advantage. Keep an eye on them. And let's send a recon team to the Vortis system. We need to know exactly what they're up to. Jansen immediately began relaying the orders, and soon the ship was on course for the distant system. But as they made their way through the stars, Hawk felt a heavy weight on her shoulders. This wasn't just a war for territory. It was a war for survival. If humanity lost, there would be no future. There would be no Earth left to protect. The rest of the crew was no better. They had fought hard, but there was a sense of unease that clung to them all. They were human, and while they were resilient, they also knew their limits. In the past, they'd fought against the unknown in smaller skirmishes, but this was something different. The aliens they faced now were far more advanced, their technology far superior to what humanity had. Yet they had underestimated one thing: human determination. Meanwhile, on the alien side, the remaining fleet commanders were dealing with the consequences of the defeat. They had lost their flagship and a significant portion of their fleet. Reports were flooding in, detailing the human ship's capabilities and how it had single-handedly turned the tide of the battle. The aliens, once so confident in their superiority, were now questioning their assumptions. In their high command, the alien leaders debated their next move. Their fleet was no longer a single force of overwhelming power. It was scattered and disorganized. One leader, Commander Krell, stood in front of the holographic map, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "We cannot allow this defeat to define us," Krell growled, his voice low and full of rage. "Humanity may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." Another commander, Zeller, stood next to him. "We underestimated them, Commander Krell. Their ship, this Sovereign, is far more capable than we anticipated. We need time to rebuild our forces." "We will rebuild," Krell said coldly, "but we must act quickly. The humans are already preparing for our next move. We cannot afford to be caught off guard again." Back aboard the Sovereign, Hawk gathered her officers for a strategy meeting. They had already seen the alien fleet's movements and knew that the enemy was preparing for something big. The time for passive defense was over. "Here's what we know," Hawk said, standing at the front of the conference table. "The aliens are regrouping at Vortis, and they're rebuilding. We can't afford to wait for them to strike first. We need to go on the offensive." Taylor, the tactical officer, nodded. "We could launch a strike at their main fleet while they're still in the process of regrouping. It would weaken them significantly." "How soon can we strike?" Hawk asked, her gaze steady. "We'll need about a week to get everything ready, Captain," Taylor answered. "We've lost some weapon systems in the battle, and we're repairing them as fast as we can. But we can still hit them hard if we move quickly." Hawk nodded. "We'll take that week then. But we need to keep our operations quiet. We don't want them to realize we're coming until it's too late." The crew got to work, making repairs and preparing for the coming conflict. But as the days passed, there was a sense of dread in the air. The war had only just begun. Humanity had won the first battle, but the alien forces were regrouping, and they would return with vengeance in their hearts. In the depths of space, the enemy was growing stronger, and the next confrontation would be even more intense. As the Sovereign made its way toward the Vortis system, Hawk couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But one thing was certain: the crew of the Sovereign would face whatever came next with the same courage and resolve that had carried them through their first battle. For humanity, the fight was just beginning. And no matter what happened, they would not go down without a fight. The Sovereign was ready. After days of preparation, repairs, and tension-filled waiting, the human warship was once again at full capacity, its crew united by the same unbreakable spirit. The alien fleet might be regrouping, But they had underestimated humanity before, and they would do so again. The time for stealth had passed. Now it was time to strike. Captain Hawk stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. The cold stars outside her view were a reminder of the vastness of space and the fierce fight humanity was about to face. But her resolve was as unwavering as ever. "Commander Taylor, are we ready?" "Yes, Captain," Taylor replied, his voice steady. "We've got full weapons systems back online. The fleet is on course for the Vortis system, and we've calculated the optimal time to strike. They won't know what hit them." Hawk's eyes narrowed. She wasn't so naive as to think this would be easy. The aliens had learned from their earlier mistakes, and they would be prepared. But if there was one thing she had learned about humanity, it was their ability to adapt quickly. The Sovereign was an extension of that resilience, and its crew was more than ready for whatever came next. "Good. Let's make sure they understand just who they're dealing with," she said with a grim smile. "Launch all recon drones. We need to know exactly what we're walking into." A series of beeps and flashes filled the bridge as the drones deployed, moving silently through the darkness of space. Their sleek, high-tech bodies blended into the void, transmitting data back to the Sovereign in real time. For the crew, this was their final opportunity to gather critical intelligence before the battle. "Recon drones have infiltrated the Vortis system," Jansen, the communications officer, reported. "We're getting live images now." The holographic display flickered to life in front of Hawk. On it, the alien fleet was revealed, larger and more organized than they had initially thought. A massive warship, clearly their flagship, sat at the center of a large formation. It was surrounded by dozens of smaller, faster ships, each bristling with weapons. The aliens had clearly learned their lesson and fortified their position. They were ready for war. "This isn't just a regroup," Taylor muttered, his voice laced with disbelief. "It's a full-scale invasion." Hawk's eyes were sharp. She quickly assessed the situation, considering their options. "They've consolidated their forces in the Vortis system. This is where we end it. We'll hit them hard, fast, and from multiple angles. No room for hesitation." "All systems ready, Captain," Taylor confirmed. "We're prepared to launch the strike at your command." Hawk took a deep breath, her mind clear. This was it, the final assault. There would be no retreat, no second chances. The Sovereign and its crew were about to face the full might of the alien fleet, and they would not back down. Not now. Not ever. "All hands, brace for impact," Hawk said. "Engage the enemy. Let them feel the power of humanity." The Sovereign surged forward into the Vortis system, cutting through the darkness of space like a blade. The alien fleet, previously so confident in its superiority, was now faced with the fury of humanity's resolve. The battle was about to begin. The Sovereign opened fire first, its weapons lighting up the cold expanse of space as it unleashed a barrage of energy blasts at the alien flagship. The explosion was magnificent, a burst of bright energy that sent shockwaves through the battlefield. But the alien ships responded quickly, retaliating with their advanced weaponry. The first few minutes of the battle were chaotic. The Sovereign weaved through enemy fire, using its superior speed and maneuverability to avoid most of the incoming blasts. But even with their advanced technology, the aliens were struggling to cope with the human ship's unpredictability. It wasn't just their weapons that made the Sovereign so dangerous. It was the sheer willpower of its crew. "Target their engines," Hawk ordered, her voice calm but commanding. "We can't let them escape again." "Targeting engines," Taylor confirmed. The Sovereign unleashed another wave of fire, this time aimed directly at the alien fleet's propulsion systems. The explosions were intense, rocking the alien ships and sending several of them careening out of control. The enemy fleet faltered. Their ships, though advanced, couldn't withstand the relentless barrage from the Sovereign and its allies. One by one, the alien ships were disabled or destroyed, their once imposing fleet crumbling under the might of humanity's response. But the flagship wasn't done. The massive alien warship retaliated with a desperate fury, its weapons firing faster and more precisely than ever before. The Sovereign was hit, its hull shaking violently under the onslaught. Alarms blared across the ship, and sparks flew from damaged consoles. Yet the crew remained focused, pushing forward with everything they had. "We've taken heavy damage," Captain Jansen reported, his voice tight. "The shields are holding, but just barely." Hawk's expression remained firm. "Hold steady, everyone. This isn't over yet." The Sovereign pressed forward, cutting through the smoke and fire of battle. The alien flagship was no longer as organized as it had been. Their leaders were falling, their ships were being destroyed, and their will was starting to break. With one final push, the Sovereign launched a direct attack on the alien flagship's core. The explosion was magnificent, a blinding flash of light that consumed everything in its path. The alien flagship was no more. As the battle ended, silence fell across the Vortis system. The alien fleet was shattered, their forces scattered to the farthest reaches of space. The crew of the Sovereign had done the impossible. They had struck at the heart of the alien empire and emerged victorious. Captain Hawk stood on the bridge, watching the stars once again. The Sovereign had faced the impossible, and humanity had won. The war wasn't over, but this victory was a turning point. Humanity had proven its strength. They had shown the galaxy that when it came to survival, there was nothing more dangerous than a human pushed to the brink. The battle was won, but the story of humanity's strength had only just begun.